So, for anybody who's watching, either live or in the replay, who is Elen Sentier and what kind of books do you write? I know they've got quite a few of your books in this selection today. So, briefly describe who is Elen Sentier.
Well, she's a woman of a certain age who lives in the UK and is a life coach for her business, has been for 30 years, and enjoys it very much because I like helping people. They're quite fun. And as well as that, I write. And I've been writing, I suppose actually I've been writing all my life, but I've been published since about the millennia, really.
Oh.
And I've written a lot of books and I thoroughly like it. And I write about real life magic, not new agey stuff, the real thing.
Oh, okay. Right. Shall we go on to the first book then? All right. Let's
What a...
And it's Shaman Pathways, Ellen of the Ways. I think this is your most famous book, isn't it? British Shamanism.
It could be. It's either that or the Celtic Chakras is.
Oh, okay.
One of the two is. I'm very fond of this one because it's about me.
Yeah, I thought you would be then. Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm a little biased in that way, but no, it's fun to write about because it's writing about how I grew up. It's writing about how I work with people and how I work with the land. And I love it. And I don't know whether you've had a chance to glance at it at all, but it's all adventures and there's some history in there and some archaeology because we really do go back one hell of a long way.
Yeah. So is it kind of more autobiographical or is it stories to illustrate various fundamental shamanism concepts? What would you describe the book as? Is it a life story or is it more kind of lesson-based stories, using stories to advance knowledge, so to speak?
Yeah, it's more the latter, but some of the stories are about what happened in my childhood, for instance, or what's happened when I've been working with friends. And there's a part of it which is describing a trip to Orkney.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And so much happened there. And we had such adventures that it's like, yeah, talk about this because this really happened. And it was in 2015 or something, you know, not 1800 and spelling mistake. And and this is how it can be. And I think a lot of people get it. Because they may not talk about it, but, you know, they go to somewhere beautiful like Orkney and see these ancient places and they go, oh, yeah, this is rather nice.
Yeah. So who would you say the book is aimed at? Who would benefit most from reading the book? Apart from the obvious answer, self-serving answer of everybody, but who is the book most beneficial to?
Anybody who's really interested in our old ways, the fact that we do have indigenous people, we are indigenous people here. And the fact that, you know, we've been conquered and had people overrunning us for 2,000-3,000 years.
Yeah.
So, but we are still there and we do still exist. And these are the old ways that we follow. And they're all very nature-based and really in tune with today.
Okay, so shall we move on to the next book?
Where are we going now?
Yes. And it is Chauvet Cave, The Art of the Earliest Times by Jean Clottes.
Jean Clottes, if you want to be very Peter Sellers about it.
Yes.
Amazing man at an utterly amazing place. And something that the French have done really, really well. It's about 40,000 years old, this cave.
Yeah.
And it's right down the edge of the Dordogne, a very beautiful valley like they are down there. And they found it and they got in, and it goes on for ages. I think it might be even something like 2 miles.
Oh, yeah.
And the paintings in there are stunning, and they're not the same as the ones in the other French caves or the Spanish caves. One big thing is they've got a lot of predators in them. Instead of people just hunting deer or something like that, they've got fantastic cave lions and cave bears, and they're so beautiful. And in the cave, one of the most stunning things about it to me is in the cave, they found footprints in what was mud. It's now rock, but it was mud. And one set of footprints is this small child, they guess from the size of the print, about 10. And beside it are the prints of a wolf. And nobody's running. Nobody's running away. And there's a lovely film on the cave which talks about this too. And everybody's sort of thinking, the archaeologists are thinking, were we making friends with the wolves, or were the wolves making friends with us?
Yeah.
And I was just like blown away by that. But the other best thing of it is you can actually visit it. Well, not eat. Because you can't go in there because A, breathing will destroy everything, and B, to get to the farthest end, you need to take oxygen with you because it's so deep. You will be running out of oxygen by the time you get there. So they have built a replica, and it's it's not as big, but it's got all the stuff in it. And it's stunning to go around there. You really feel you've been there in the real place. So recommended, guys. Go visit France. There's very good food and wine there as well. But this smashing cave, and it's stunning.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Because I've got a weird mic.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah. It's just I've got a little message saying my microphone disconnected, and I just reconnected it and it works. So don't know what that's about. Anyway.
Technology.
So I wasn't paying attention. So I've got, remember, is there like a virtual cave you can go around now? And
yes, there is. Well, it's not that you can go around it virtually on the site, but you can actually go around the physical replica that they have built about 2 miles away. And that is really out of this world. Yeah, it really is. And so I seriously recommend it. But you get a really good vision of it on the website. They take you around.
Yeah, and this particular book. So we are talking about the book here. So
sorry.
What's the benefit of the book? Is that pictures of the caves and discussion?
Yes,
or is it
beautiful. It's beautiful pictures. So it's quite an expensive hardback book, on the coffee table variety, but really worth it. Beautiful pictures and explanations of what they found and how they think about it, what the ideas were when their book was published, about what the paintings were about and how complicated they were. I mean, some of them they're like a Disney animation. Yeah, there's like horse, and which sort of like gives you that sort of running feeling. Yeah, and they sort of went, wow, they did this 40,000 years ago. Yeah, and they talk about it and about what they've discovered and what their feelings were for the people who actually built it. And it's a real eye-opener. You sort of drop the whole idea of savages.
Yeah, I think the idea of savages is being like people often were very intelligent in the past, but they're obviously limited by their technology. They hadn't had 2,000 years of technological advancement behind them.
Yeah, maybe they felt also that the brain was all there if they wanted to invent mobile phones. So maybe they just didn't want to.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a good improvement in society.
I'm not sure, but
Yeah. Anyway, before we get too controversial, shall we go on to the next one?
Absolutely.
Right. And as threatened in the pre-chat, The Complete Tales of Winnie-the-Pooh by A.A. Milne.
I grew up on those, and there are. I suppose they're a bit Marmite. You either like them or you don't. I do. There's so much wisdom in them, but they're funny, and I can identify with Pooh, that's the bear, and I can identify with Piglet, that's his little friend, and I can identify with Robin, who is the little human child, who has them as well, and the owl, I can identify with the owl, Wall, spelt Wall because that's how you spell it when you're 5, and Rabbit and all his friends and relations, and he's such, he's such a fusspot, and Eeyore, the sort of moaning donkey, and the characters are just, I love how they interact, and I was read them when I was a baby, and then later when I could read, I read them. So I think they really affected me all my life. I really sort of feel that. And I can get sort of something happened to me and I can think, oh, yeah, I'm doing a Piglet now.
Well, they were a bit like a sort of, not fairy tales, but like an Aesop's fable kind of way of teaching you as a child through fiction, so to speak.
Yeah. I have a bit of a I went and looked up a lot about Robin and his father and how the tales were made and all this sort of thing. And actually the kid had a bit of a rough time because his mum was particularly keen on publicizing him. And, he was what, sort of 7, 8, 9, 10. And then he went away to school and he got thoroughly bullied at school because of the stories. And so it's pretty rough. And for years afterwards, he went away and lived elsewhere and he wouldn't ever talk about them ever. So it's quite sad, really.
Oh well. It's still a great legacy to leave, though, isn't it?
I do. I mean, I still read the stories, and I just sort of wish the parents had a little bit more sort of nous in them to not treat their kid like that. But
well, it's a long tradition of that, isn't there? Unfortunately.
Well, isn't there? Yeah.
Okay, so on that sad note, let's go on to the next book.
Ooh, not a sad note. They're still lovely stories.
And it's the Chronicles of Amber by Robert
Zelazny, just as it's spelled. An American from New Mexico area. Well, at least that's where he was last. Science fiction writer and very famous if you're into science fiction. And his stories just totally transported me, particularly the Amber stories. He's written other ones as well, but the Amber stories really transported me across worlds. I was there. And the amount of readings that Zelazny must have done, because, he knows a lot about England. He knows a lot about the plague we had and the Great Fire, and he knows a lot about Italy, and he knew Paris from his descriptions, because I know Paris. His descriptions are like, God, you have been there. I've done this. And then he takes them all into this fantasy world where his hero is a superhero and immortal and all this sort of thing. But he's also got the most incredible family dynamics. I mean, they are a totally dysfunctional family. And it's good. It's really well done. And he brings out so that even the bad guys, you come to sort of think, well, yeah, I can see why he did that. And the hero, Corwin, you can sort of go, you're a real bugger there. That was a bastard thing you did. And so nobody is pure white and nobody is pure black, which of course makes it very much easier to identify with a character. So they're great fun, and there's miles of them. I think there's about 10 is there altogether, something like that.
Yeah. Are they all set? Are they set in the future, or are they present day, or time travel, or what?
It's sort of time travel because Amber is the ultimate world, and all the other worlds are shadows that have been created off it, including ours.
Yeah.
And the hero family are all sort of magicians, so they can all travel anywhere. So you'll find yourself, 1 minute in this amazing ultimate world, and then the next minute you find yourself back on the streets of Paris in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Or in the streets of London in, 16 something or another. And so he ditzes about because these people have been there and lived there and done things. And there's some of it that was like in the 20th century. He hasn't moved forward because he died, poor lad, before we ever got to the millennia. But, it was right up to, the late 20th century that you might find yourself in. And then you're suddenly back in this incredible fantasy world again.
Yeah. So that sounds kind of interesting.
Well, I think they're fun.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on to the next book?
Let's have a go.
And it's The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Guin. I think she's been mentioned on this show before.
I would imagine Ursula has. She is, one of the most famous women writers in the world. Yeah. She's dead now, unfortunately. And she writes fantasy, science fiction fantasy, in a future world, in future worlds that we have gone and explored as humans, maybe like hundreds and thousands of years ahead. Yeah. We have one of her big things is nearly as fast as light travel.
Yeah.
And also ships that can travel as fast as light, but they can't have humans on them. And the science she knows behind that actually works is fascinating. But they're quite political, all of them. Yeah. And she was a very strong feminist. And some of her books can be a little bit over the top. But Left Hand of Darkness is superb, I think, in that it's about a human male who goes to this planet as an envoy, sort of like, hi guys, we've got this, what have you got, shall we share? And the planet that he goes to, the people are androgyne. They can be male or female at the turn of the moon, kind of thing, or the turn of their own sexual thing. And how she works that, how a human male would react to being with a person who, under the touch, as she says in one of it, under the touch of his hand, might suddenly turn into a beautiful woman or a beautiful man. And how they work with that and how it sort of freaks the brain out is superb. But also like how it helps them deal with their society and how they work their society differently to the way we do. And so and most of her books are about this sort of like, we could be doing it this way, but we're actually doing it this way.
Yeah.
And this way has some good points and this way has some good points. So again, there's no right or wrong in it, which is very good. And her writing is superb. She's got beautiful prose and very readable, beautiful prose as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people use science fiction as a way to make maybe points about current or at the time current politics.
I think so. I think so all the time. I mean, I've read science fiction ever since teenage.
Yeah.
And you sort of go, oh my God. And what I have found, I don't know whether you found this too, is that you get to like now and you think, heck, this is a bit like a book I read in 1975.
Yeah.
Oh, ouch. I didn't like the ending of that one either. But, but it's interesting. And it is a way of taking it. I mean, the modern science fiction writers say so anyway.
Yeah,
we're making
okay. Let's go on to the the next book, which is another sci-fi. I've reordered them, so all the sci-fi totally accidentally are all next to each other. So
that's all right. You know, my library's full of it, so we're fine. I adore this book.
Yeah,
this is Zelazny's very last book. And A Night in Lonesome October is the 31st of October.
Yeah.
It's Samhain, as we say in this country, Halloween. It's a night of where the veils are thin, where everything can happen. And he's got a whole set of characters, and they're all various magicians of some sort. And his hero is based on Jack the Ripper.
Oh,
so his hero is Jack.
Yeah.
And his hero has a familiar spirit. They all have a familiar spirit, an animal. And his hero familiar spirit is his dog. And the whole story is told from the dog's perspective.
Oh, okay.
And it's beautifully done. And I don't know whether you've read any Lovecraft. I'm sure somebody on here has read Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Zelazny certainly has. So he's using a lot of the Lovecraftian things of, you know, these frightful monsters who are going to take over the world, as, you know, they're coming on this night. And there's some people who want to open the door and let them in, and there's some people who want to shut the door and keep them out. And Jack the Ripper is actually one of those who wants to keep them out, but you don't know that for quite a while. I've just done a spoiler there, but never mind.
Yeah.
And there's the other side. The other side of it is this lovely witch lady who, you know, this is Zelazny's humor. The hero is called Jack, and the lovely witch lady is called Jill.
Oh, yeah.
And he does finish it like that, which is beautiful. Yeah. And she wants to let them in because she's had a rough life, and her familiar spirit is a cat, and her cat's had a really rough life. And so anything's got to be better than what we've got. And so there's lots of that play. There's lots of characterization play, different characterizations. And all the familiar spirits talk. And you hear what the humans say through the familiar spirits. But the familiar spirits talk to each other. So you get a completely different perspective on the whole thing. And I thought, well, you know, when I found he died quite soon afterwards, I thought, what a way to go.
Yeah.
You know, brilliant finale, boy. Thank you very much.
Well, on that positive note, let's go on to the next book. Which is Gardening with the Moon and Stars by this.
Oh my God. One end of the universe to the other then.
I know. I just randomly shoved it.
I think it's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah.
Gardening with the Moon and Stars. Well, it is magic. Or at least a lot of people would say it's magic. It's a thing called biodynamics, which is umpteen bloody syllables, which is quite late Victorian Edwardian style. Unfortunately, it's still got the name. Anybody in the know calls it BD because we just can't cope with it. But it's about gardening or farming or working with the land, period. Because I had one of my students uses, well, she still does use it, and she's an ecologist over on the northwest coast of America. Okay. And she and her partner do the salmon run and look after the green forest there and Green Mountain. And she uses it in that. But it's about 8 magical preparations, well, weird preparations, let's call it weird preparations, that are made in weird ways. And you use, some people will know a bit about homeopathy. With homeopathy, less is more. The less of the subject, the aconite you've got in your little vial, the stronger it is.
Yeah.
And these preparations work in the same way. So you can use a tiny little bit of them and stir it in water. And nice magical ritual of stirring both ways and all this kind of thing. Doesn't matter whether you believe in magic or not, it still works. And it really changes your garden. The first time I started using it, Not the first time, but the first time when we moved to Hereford, we moved into a place which was called Marsh House Farm. It was called Marsh House Farm because it was in the middle of a marsh.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, when it rained, it could get very wet. In fact, we never got, the house never got flooded, but the drive down to it and the fields around it did. And our garden used to. So we started using the stuff when we arrived there, and our land never got flooded again.
Oh, yeah.
And it became very, very productive and very, very good. And we got quite a lot of the locals we were friendly with, and they come down and say, "What have you been doing down here then?" And I'm not going to tell you, it's all weird magic, you won't want to know, sort of thing. And broomsticks and full moons and all that kind of stuff, and tease them. And come on, tell me about it. And so that got me writing the book. It's all been written up. It's developed by a man called Rudolf Steiner, who's done the Steiner schools and all this sort of thing. But he was sort of Victorian-ish, and the language is words of about, the smallest word has got 6 syllables in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you get the message. And it's flowery and it goes on. And so most people look at it and they sort of go 2 lines down and they're asleep. And that doesn't help anybody to use it.
Yeah.
I grew up in the sort of Gardener's World brigade. And so I thought, no, we can write this in Gardener's World language. And so Gardening with the Moon and Stars is how to do biodynamics for Gardener's World watchers.
Yeah.
And all I can say is I've been doing it for 40 odd years, more really, because my uncle used to do it before. And it works. You get amazing vegetables. I mean, I get amazing raspberries. The vegetables get over things like too many caterpillars very easily. The ground itself is very good. Like I said, it stopped flooding. It was able to let the water go. Farmers use it. A lot of vineyards use it. Big vineyards in California use it. They're not going to use something that isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So recommended, give it a whirl. It doesn't cost you much. And your neighbours may peer at you at first, and then they'll start nicking your strawberries, and then they'll decide they want to know too.
So can you exclusively give us one tip from your book here then that would help somebody who's watching the garden or farm?
Yeah, very difficult, because what you do have to do is you really do need to have a go at reading the book.
Yeah.
And you have to get hold of these preparations, because like homeopathy, they work, very small doses, and they work. So have a read, see what you can get into it. So my tip is get the book and have a read.
Yeah.
Because there isn't something, well, if you do this, then you'll be all right. It isn't, unfortunately, like that.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, you're keeping your, and I'm sure people can get hold of the book in a library or something, or borrow, or buy one for the whole community.
It's available very cheaply on Kindle.
Yeah.
So you can have it on your phone while you're gardening.
Yeah, and changing the planet. Okay, shall we go on to the next book? Which is Talking to Dragons, The Enchanted Forest by Patricia Wrede.
Yep. It's a real favourite of mine. This is adventure. People might sort of say, well, you know, it's sort of young adult, or maybe even less, you know, younger than that. But it isn't. It's available, and it's quite readable for everybody. And it is the hero's journey.
Yeah.
But it's beautifully done. And it's this young lad who's didn't know his mother was a witch until various accidents happened, and she melted this wizard right at the beginning with a bucket of soapy water. And I've not tried it, so you have a go. But and then he goes off into the forest, the enchanted forest, and he has to find out what to do with this sword she's given him. And she has taught him something which is really important in, I think, in life generally, as well as in magic, to be polite.
Yeah.
And you can have fun and all that kind of thing, but you are polite to somebody, at least at the beginning.
Yeah.
And he's able to manage dealing with thorn hedges that trap him and princesses that go all over the place and fountains that try to swallow him and dragons and all the rest of the stuff because he's polite.
Yeah.
And he hooks up with this fire witch she's gorgeous. She's really funny, but she's damned if she's going to be polite. Going out there. And because she gets really stuck. And of course there's, you know, stuff that happens between them, and he does manage to get everybody through and saves the planet or whatever he's doing in there, saves the forest in the end of it. But it's very funny and it's very sweet, and it's got a lot of wisdom in it. I still reread it, and I first read it that long ago.
Yeah.
So
okay, so we go on to the next book, which I suspect might be another one of yours.
Oh dear.
Yes. And it's numerology. Numerology? Dancing with Spirals of Time.
Oh, yeah. When did I first learn numerology? I was about 7.
Yeah.
My dad did. My dad did it. And he started me with the way he knew, which I found fascinating. I was involved with a very magical, well, I was brought up in a very magical family where we all did, you know, we did the seasons of the festivals and all sorts of other strange things. I got really into numerology and I found that it works. And even as a kid, I was thinking, you know, I've got an exam at school coming up. I'm going to do the dates. Oh dear, I'm going to fail. And I did. You could say this is partly me, you know, sort of decided that I was going to fail. But so I did it and it wasn't very much. And then I started with this woman. She was a very famous woman called Vila Beck. And she taught me a different sort of numerology. And this is very deep and very fascinating and had a lot based in maths, which was quite fascinating for me. And no, I really get this. This is good, but I need something more. I can't translate it properly yet. I can't put it into words for people. And then I got the rheumatoid arthritis and got retired from the Ministry of Defence and became a psychotherapist.
Yeah.
And the transpersonal psychotherapy gave me the tools and the language to translate the numbers. And I will still do this now, but I don't do it very much. But I used to do this professionally for people for about 20 years in London. And people kept coming back and telling their friends. So it was obviously working.
Yeah.
And it was making sense. And the book is about how to do it for yourself. Okay. So you can learn it by starting. And you learn the sort of why it's this way and what makes it that way and that sort of thing. But it's quite simple at the beginning of the process. And then you start building in all the things of the meanings that are happening. So, yeah, it's a do-it-yourself numerology. And you two will be dancing.
It's funny, actually. I was just coming back from a conference in Newcastle about marketing, of all things. And they had a numerology woman there as one of the sessions.
Wow.
And I wasn't entirely convinced, I have to say, because she just seemed to be involving adding up people's birth dates and like saying the number and then giving you a personality type. So is that It sounds a bit. So presumably, what you're doing is a bit more complicated than just giving people a number and then telling them how wonderful they are for that number.
I certainly don't go around telling people how wonderful they are for that number. It is about adding up your birthday and about adding up your name number.
Yeah.
And that gets quite complicated because, you know, I'm Elen Sentier, but I might be Ellen Janet Sentier. So it depends which you use, because that's the one that is that you are resonating with. But what the numbers mean, I've never been able to just, you know, like a gypsy at a fairground, I'm not able to give you that kind of like quick information. It doesn't happen like that. I have done a few like workshops where I've shown people how to do it and got them to do it, and then sort of said, right, if you want more, either read the book if I'd already written it, or you're going to have to come back, because understanding it and translating it is a lot deeper, and you need to take that slowly. So, yeah, and you won't be wonderful. Nobody's completely wonderful. Nobody's completely awful either. Yeah. So it's complicated.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of like these personality tests and things that often it's like they give you 15 varieties of thing, and they've all got wonderful skills in something or other that people always want to be. I'm not sure. It's like you're never going to get I've added up your number, your name, and you're a psychopath, Jack the Ripper time.
I probably am, so I wouldn't worry about it. But no, it's much more complicated than that. And, you know, we could both have the same number, like birth number or name number or something, but there'd still be so much else that was going on around that we wouldn't be the same. And people have got very stuck into archetypes, and archetypes are just labels to generalize about things that psychologists need and use. But you can't say you are like that. And somebody was asking me the other day, well, are you introvert or extrovert? And I said, depends what day it is. You know, I might be really introvert this morning, and then this afternoon I'm feeling quite extrovert. I'm not one thing. Nobody is. And that the way I do the numbers will definitely push that at you. But it's quite fun to go. And again, it's available on Amazon.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the next book, which I'm doing one book by somebody else, one by you. That's why I've changed the order mid-show, because I don't like doing it.
That sounds good.
And we have The Woodwife by Terri Windling.
Yes.
Who's actually one of the non-dead authors here, apart from you.
Absolutely.
Obviously.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm not dead. Yet.
I did say apart from you. So,
no, Terri's still well alive, and I don't know. Should I know where she lives? Should I say? Probably not.
No. Well, I mean, you can say the general area. I mean,
she lives in Britain. Let's put it.
Okay.
But she's an amazing woman. She worked for Tor Books for years and years and years, and as an editor, and also with another friend of hers, they collected some wonderful of the old fairy stories with the old words in it. So, you know, there's all the horrid bits in Sleeping Beauty and all the horrid bits in Snow White that you don't normally hear about. And beautifully done. And some of the, you know, quite often they've been moved into like today, or they're told differently. So she's very good at that kind of thing. Now, The Woodwife is about a place, I think she still owns it. I think she still goes there in New Mexico, that she went to live. And I would love to go. It's so beautiful. It's on the edge of the desert, Sonora. And it's about how this woman gets involved with the local magic. And there, of course, it's the local Native American tribe. And fascinating, absolutely fascinating. She obviously knows, and she's obviously spoken to these people. So you're not getting some kind of mishmash. You're getting something that is very real. And it's a bit of a love story too. It starts off because this woman goes to look after this house that she's inherited from this poet that she'd always admired and was writing his biography. And but he's dead, obviously, but he's left her lots of secrets to find. And the person who just lives in the cabin up the road is a Native American, or half Native, and he's magic. And then she comes across animals and people who are magic and who shapeshift, and things happen to bring her out of herself so that she comes to stand in her own power and be her real self. And of course she falls in love with somebody, and it nearly goes wrong, and then it probably goes right at the end. So it's fascinating. But it's a beautiful story, and she's a very good writer again, so her prose is lovely. And it's very nearly the only book she's written.
Yeah.
She's written a few fun ones, and she's written a short novella, which follows on a bit from the Woodwife story. But this is, I think, the main novel that she's written.
Okay.
And I think that a bit sad because I liked it, and I thought, well, I'd like some more like this.
Well, she's on Twitter actually, so I'll tweet out and I can say, like, Ellen wants you to write more books. What you've been doing, and she'll say, well, Tim, you haven't written a book since 2019, so you can't really.
I know, and she's doing lots of other things which she wants to do. So I mean, that's fine. Just because I want her to write a book, you know.
Yeah.
Go live your own life, Terri. It's great.
Yeah. Right. Shall we go on to the next?
Yes. My God, it's going to be one of mine from what you just said.
Yeah, might be.
Mm.
Our Woman.
Oh, all right then. Yeah, I don't mind that one. This is my first novel.
Oh, okay.
And I still love it, which is quite amazing, particularly amazing for a writer, as I'm sure you know, that you sort of go, really, did I write that? And excuse me, I have this awful trouble with dry lips. And I still like it. And I still reread it, which is quite unusual, like about every 3 or 4 years. Yeah. It's based in the story of the well that my aunt used to be guardian to, which is actually built into the wall of the garden where I grew up in a little village in North Devon. And the well has legend, which is really a sort of wicked stepmother legend. And it's also about the water and how the water gives vision. And it actually, for a long time in the Middle Ages, the village made a fortune from people coming on pilgrimage to the well because it really did cure cataract.
Oh.
And it's been shut all my lifetime, so you can't get into it. But they still used to use it up until certainly a bit before the Second World War, because my stepmother used to use it. And so the stories are still there. But again, it's basically magic, mystery, and romance. And lots of I like relationship stuff. I think it's partly, you know, being a coach I like people's relationships with everybody. And so there's lots of relationships in there. And there is a relationship between a man and a woman, who is the heroine and the hero. And all the things that have gone wrong and all the things that still go wrong in it, and how they make really gorgeously crass mistakes with each other, but also with what they're doing. and it's about how somebody is stealing the water from the village and how that hurts the village, which never actually happened to my knowledge. So I just made that one up for the story, but it's a story that goes around the world. There's lots of it. I really enjoy it because of the relationships, because of the interest and the turning between people. And again, nobody's completely wrong or bad. Although there's a couple who are pretty nasty. Yeah. But you do actually know why they're nasty, what happened, and why they started in that life. And yes, it does end quite reasonably happily.
Okay, well, that's good. So, how many non-fiction and books have you written? How many novels have you written? Is this your first?
This is my first, and I'm now writing my third.
Oh.
Which I intend to have finished because my editor told me she will be available at the end of January.
Oh, okay.
So I've got to get my skates on for that, which I am. And then it just, however long it takes, because publishing takes time. We've got to make sure that the publisher looks at it and sort of says, yeah, I really want to sell this one, and not, oh my God, which I don't think they will. So yeah, that's 3 of them. At least I'm on the 3rd one, and there must be 9 or 10 non-fictions.
Yeah.
3 of them are bestsellers, which is nice. But yeah, quite a lot of non-fiction, because the publisher who found me, he found me with the Celtic chakras, and he said, I want this, and then he sort of keeps pushing me for something else, which I don't mind. It's fine, and he's a nice bloke, so it's okay.
Okay, well, shall we get off you for a second onto your
let's get off me. I'm fed up.
The last Ellen book. Right. And it's Space, Time and Beyond by Bob, Toben, Jack
Sarfatti,
and Fred Wolf.
And Fred Wolf. All 3 of whom, I think 2 of them are still alive. I don't think Bob is. I'm pretty sure Bob isn't. They're all amazing particle astrophysicists, and the real stuff. And they worked in the 60s and 70s at a place called Elen, which was very famous and still is to some people. And they were delving into things, partly what is now quite in vogue in physics, quantum entanglement, which they're actually finding lots of uses for and working. And Bob and Jack and Fred have put physics together into a cartoon book. And it's stunning. You get it. They've able to simplify it down into really lovely drawings with, a short sentence. And you go, oh, I get that. I know what that means now. And it's all the stuff that you hear people going on about on a science program. And I found it first in the 70s, mid-70s, and bought it. And I still got that original, but I do buy extras when I can find them because it's out of print. And you might, you can go on the bookshops, secondhand bookstore things, and you can see you might have to pay 50, 100, 150 quid for it
on Amazon.
I haven't. I've never paid that much. I think most I paid was about 20 quid. So you just have to grab one when it comes around at 20 quid again. But if you're interested at all in physics and how the world works and that kind of thing, and with a bit of magic type stuff or spiritual stuff on top, but stuff that works with it, get it. And it is such fun. And it's so easy. And the drawings are amazing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I love it. That's one of the ones that will get rescued if the house was on fire. After I'd rescued the cat.
I think so, yeah. You can pay for your new house on from selling it on Amazon.
It's like that one. Oh, you've got them all neatly lined up. So grab that armful, grab the cat and run.
Right. Shall we go on to the last book?
Oh, it's going to be one of mine.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, I could have reordered it otherwise, but we've done it. We've only got one left. So.
Oh, well, then we're stuck with it.
Yeah. Practically Pagan, an alternative guide to gardening by Elen Sentier. I don't know
again, yeah. This is one that my editor sort of said, I want this. Can you write it?
Yeah.
All right then. It's not like gardening with the moon and stars. I mean, it is a bit. But, that is specifically about biodynamics. This is about gardening with the feel of the land, so that you don't sort of mark it all out on a neat chart and then force all the plants to live where you put them on that chart, even if they don't like it.
Yeah.
And how to get used to your garden, how to make friends with it, and all the sorts of things like how the soil works. But again, not complicated, and how to work with the seasons very much, because I wrote it in the seasons. That felt the right thing to do. So that, but it's not just the 4 seasons that we know, it's the 8 Celtic seasons.
Yeah.
Which is basically, you've got spring, summer, autumn, winter. And then you've got 4 more that are halfway in between each of those. Yeah. And they actually do work with the weather and the land and everything like that as well. So it's about how to garden, how to get in with your garden, how to make friends with your garden, how to... Oh, what can I say? Garden like a pagan.
Symbiotic gardening, would you say?
Symbiotic gardening it is. Actually, gardening like a pagan is okay, because the word pagan comes from Latin, which just means of the land.
Oh, okay.
So it works. It's just everybody's got all these sort of satanic ritual stuff, on the end of it.
Sacrifice the chicken.
No, you don't even have to sacrifice. No, don't even have to sacrifice anything.
Yeah.
Quite definitely not. But it's how to work with your garden symbiotically, as you said. I like that. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to. You can pay me a fee for rebranding it the Symbiotic Gardening Guide.
Right, we'll make sure that you get some of that then. No, don't even mention it.
50p, which is all your royalties, probably.
Well, what will be even worse is Trevor will get a hold of the idea and say, "No, you've got to write symbiotic gardening." No.
Right, so that has finished. That's finished the books on that you sent. You actually did give me all these books, so you can't criticize me for having too many of your books.
You told me to. It's all his fault. Honestly, it's all his fault. It's not mine.
I'll ask you a few general questions, because I already asked you about how many books you've written, but you're clearly probably more keen on the fiction side now, I guess.
Yes.
Is there, before we go on to talking about that, is there anything on the non-fiction side that you think, oh, maybe I should write a book about that?
Well, Trevor's got me under the hammer to write environmental gardening, and he's going to be shouting at me come about spring, because I have told him that I want to finish this 3rd novel before I actually put my heart into that. There is, in a sense, in that I've changed horses a bit for my main job over the past year, and I'm taking the coaching and all the ideas that I do very much more deeply into business. I've always been there, but now I'm really sort of like offering it to business. And I get the feeling that there's probably something in there. I mean, what has come out as being like my tagline for the coaching is put the soul back in your business.
Yeah.
And no, I know how to talk to people so that they know what I'm talking about. And it's like your fire, your spark, what set you off. And I've got a feeling that that might require a book.
Yeah.
Talking about it, which is like, yeah, okay. When?
It does sound like you've got quite a fast-paced writing books. I mean, how many books would you typically write a year? Or is it one a year or 2, 3?
If I've got to do a non-fiction one as well, which Trevor has had me doing before, then I can write 2. But I don't like it because I like to put the focus all on the one that I'm doing. Yeah. And basically, I mean, this third novel is going to be about 110k words.
Yeah.
And it's quite complex. And I'll have been writing it for about 15, 18 months. But I was finishing off something else at the beginning for Trevor. And there's a fourth novel there, which is pounding away in the background. Lots of stuff. So I would like to stick more to the fiction, but I know that there will be 1 or 2 more non-fictions coming up.
Yeah, well, the non-fiction books tend to be shorter, don't they? I mean, I don't know about you.
Yeah, and in some ways they're easier to write because you haven't got all the complicated relationships of characters.
Making sure that you don't suddenly have the character who died in chapter 12 coming back in chapter 18 and you've forgotten that he died.
No, the worst one I had was actually in Owl Woman, where there's a point where you cross these stepping stones, and they're really yes, they're still there, and there's 7 of them, and I got to a point where I found that I put 9 in one place. So I had to get a friend to go right through it before it went anywhere near a publisher. Have I done it? You know, yes, you did it here. Right, change it.
No, we've all done it with.
Well, I would remember. You would remember.
Yeah. Well, this is the problem. I mean, it's like because I started off writing fiction, and last book I wrote was non-fiction, but I took the advice of planning it out and then writing the draft as fast as possible, so I could kind of remember roughly what happened in the book. So let's talk about your fiction then. So are these 3/4 books, are they all related? Are they series of books, or are they different stories completely in different locations, or do they share a similar
different stories in different locations at different time periods? The next one's going to be about 40 or 50 years in the future.
Oh, okay.
They always will be based around relationships, and I like having like 2 characters. They will be male and female again, although I've got a couple of gay blokes in the third novel that I'm writing now, who are totally invaluable and wonderful. But then again, you see, I'm not gay, so me writing gay is going to be a cock-up. Sorry, that was a bad thing to say, especially in that relationship. But I couldn't do it because I'm not. So they will be male and female. They will be about weird things happening. They, like all books, make some kind of a statement about life, the universe, and everything. And they will be doing that. And this third one does. It's very much based around the idea of gaslighting. Which is quite dark and hard, but offers up so many things. And I think, well, as a psychotherapist, I know it happens a lot more than people realize. So that's been interesting to work with. I think it's got a fairly happy ending, the third one.
Yeah. Well, good to have a book about gaslighting that's got a happy ending.
Yeah, it gets a bit vicious in the middle.
Yeah.
Towards the end, but there you go.
Yeah. So another question I like to ask people, very much a which child would you kill sort of question, but of the list of books here that you've given me, if you had to give, you were able to give one of these books to somebody, what would be the most helpful book amongst this list that you could give to somebody?
The one you started with, Ellen of the Ways, or Owl Woman.
Yeah.
I just that one, yeah. Or Owl Woman. I just had that question asked me last week from somebody. Which one shall I read?
Yeah.
And I actually gave her Owl Woman, and it was right. It was the right one. So,
and why? And why?
Owl Woman, because it's storytelling, and you know, everybody likes soap operas and box sets and all this kind of thing, because we like to learn from stories.
Yeah.
And we like things to happen through stories. So there's an awful lot in Owl Woman, and you can either just read it as a surface, or you can go as deep as you like.
Yeah.
With Ellen of the Ways, because it's non-fiction, it doesn't have quite that sort of availability at different levels.
Okay. Well, it's been great to talk to you. I've kind of talked us over the hour. I remember seeing somewhere it said on Amazon you're supposed to go for over an hour if you can. I don't know why. It's never really made any difference to anything. But I thought, well, we were like 57 minutes. I was like, well, let's just talk over the hour. So it was great to talk to you this evening.
Great to talk to you, Tim, too.
Yeah,
always
we had
good.
A few viewers who all seem to come on right at the end. So maybe 9 o'clock's a better time than.
Well, get back on YouTube, guys. You know.
Yeah. And yes, and if people want to get in touch with you, you're presumably, what's your favourite social media network? And are you Elen Sentier in there?
If you put Elen Sentier into Google, you'll get the whole gamut up there. I hardly ever go on Twitter.
Yeah.
So don't really try me there. I'm on Facebook and I'm on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I'm also on Instagram when I can remember to get there.
Yeah.
But I've got too much to do.
Yeah, well, that's the trouble, isn't it? So,
yeah.
So thanks so much for being on the show. And I'm going to try and work out how to end it, which button. I have to press a button somewhere. I think I press this button first to end it. So thanks for everybody who's been watching.